Hey you guys, welcome back to my garden. Let me show you what the garden is looking like this week. So that's a cherry tomato there that I brought out here. I'm not sure if that was there last week, if I showed you guys this garden tour before I transplanted or not, but I did put that little cherry tomato in right there in hopes it'll grow up on that arch panel. Still the peppers, so they're doing really well. We've got this one hot pepper that's pretty good size now, so that looks good. A little bit more space in between these peppers. Now I did pull out, there was a squash that was growing here. If you saw it last week, I pulled that out because it just didn't look like something I wanted growing up here in this raised bed. I'll show you where I transplanted that in a minute. It's not looking so happy. I just did that about 10 minutes ago and it's already wilted. But it was shading out, so it was shading out that pepper. I don't know how well that's going to do. And there actually was another pepper there, but it looks like it didn't make it, or either that or maybe it was so tiny I thought it was a weed. So these other peppers, they're doing okay. I've got some flowers going there, and that's looking pretty good. Some of these here are my super hot peppers. We are seeing some flowers. I know I've got my orange habaneros. This one here is a sugar rush peach, and I do see, if you can see that, there's a flower in there. These two are Anaheims. There's flowers, and I see one pepper. Let me come over here, and I'll try to show you guys. So there is one Anaheim pepper. There's some going already, so let me show you these guys. They're early producers. So we've got some there that I can take. So that's looking good. The plant's actually still really small. This here is a volunteer squash. It's growing. It's probably grown maybe a couple feet since I showed you guys last week. So we need to get that up so that it'll grow up on that arch, because I don't want it to take over the bed. Actually, right here, I hadn't planted anything. This is where I was going to plant some beans, some bush beans. So I planted one, and I was going to come back and put more. I still haven't done that. So we need to get the squash out of the way so we can do that. The okra is looking a lot better. It's getting bigger. So maybe a couple weeks ago when I showed you on the tour, we planted the okra pretty early, and it does tend to like a lot warmer weather. So it didn't look so happy. We do have one that still looks pretty sad, but I didn't pull it out. We'll see if it does okay. We've got some volunteer basil popping up. These 3 tomatoes were the ones I showed you guys how to plant deeply. That's the one we planted long ways. It's growing right up. Now I have twisted these once around that string or the twine since I planted them, and that's it. Couple more tomatoes. I can't remember if I planted these or if these were some of the volunteers that I just let stay, but we've got some tomatoes and plenty of volunteer basil out here. This tomato, I don't remember what kind it is, but it is having a really difficult time growing out here. So I don't know if something's eating it. I don't know what's happening. So we've let it stay there, but it's really struggling. Here we've got beefsteak tomatoes in the back. It'll grow up that arch. And then, so there's like about 4 of those. And then over there, there's some rainbow cherry tomatoes. And then in the front, we have more tomatoes. So up here, this is that ground cherry that we put in. So something's munching. You can see that something's munching on the leaves. We're trying to do an organic garden out here. So hopefully there'll still be some items for us to harvest. Our basil's getting big. These are those rainbow cherry tomatoes. They're quite a bit. This is the first time I've grown them. We got these seeds free with something else we ordered. And they're very small compared to the other cherry tomatoes I'm used to growing. The plants themselves, I mean, they're very dainty. And then more tomatoes to the back. So here we've got all of this volunteer Malabar spinach. So there's going to be more than we can even handle here. So many starts, but we're just going to let them go. And then I've got some cucumbers. I do notice that a couple of the plants are looking like they've got some yellow leaves here. I'm not sure what's happening. There is something eating some of the leaves. But so far, so good. So that's looking okay. Let me show you this one over here, where we've got a cherry tomato. So we've got a cherry tomato here, and that's getting a little bit bigger. I need to trim it up. All of our Delicata Squash is right here in this bed. And we do have a handful of little volunteers that are probably some type of melon. So we'll see how this all grows throughout the season. Got our water going here. And then let me show you this, our ground garden. So this is what the ground garden's looking like. Let me show you this miserable little plant here. So this is the one I just tried to pull out of the raised bed and transplant. Within like 5 minutes, it's all looking wilted like that. So I did give it some water. We'll see what happens. If it doesn't make it, I'm not super worried about it, simply because I didn't want it growing in my raised bed and shading out the peppers. There's our spaghetti squash. We've got a spaghetti squash, and there's another little baby in there starting, and a bunch of flowers, so that's doing pretty good. And I'll take you back over here and show you the beans. All right, you guys, here's where we have all these rattlesnake green beans growing. So they're still pretty small. It doesn't look like they're quite taken off yet, but they look healthy enough. So they're growing along there, and then not much in that back, just our basil. Okay guys, here's one of the raised beds in the back, and there's some tomatoes that are starting. Some's kind of small. This is a piece that I actually broke off the tomato and just stuck it in the ground. So it's alive, but not big yet. There's another different type of tomato back there. That's beets. More tomatoes. I did start to trim these tomatoes, but I definitely need to get these tomatoes like staked up. These are indeterminate tomatoes. They're going to be huge. I never pulled these little volunteers out. They're still living. I'm not sure in what dirt, but they're still there. Then I've got one more tomato right there, and then my onions are doing pretty well. And let me show you this bin right here. Got this one tomato, which is getting pretty big. My garlic just didn't work out for me this year, so that's out of here. And I've still got some onions over here. So I'll give you a quick look at these strawberries. They're not doing much here. They're real tiny. We just put these in this year, but they're still healthy. I'll take you over here, show you my plants that are over here in pots. So I've got peppers. These are bell peppers. Bell peppers. You can see they got peppers on them. That's a super hot pepper there. A couple little tiny peppers. Then I've got my tomatoes, which I did stake up. That one's in a tomato cage. It's doing really well. This one's actually doing really good. It's doing better than some of the ones in my raised beds. I definitely have tomatoes. As you can see, there's tomatoes starting there. I've got these tied up. Some of them I have stakes, and like I said, just tomato cage. That's my Buena Mulata pepper back there, and then my Anaheim that I overwintered. And you can see we've got good-sized peppers on it. It's producing a fair amount for me already, so those will be ready to harvest any day. And then I'll show you a couple more tomatoes. So we just had so many extra tomatoes we didn't want to get rid of them. So we put some more in pots. And then let me show you what I've got going on over here. So these are just, I took an old t-shirt and cut it up because I want to use that to tie up some of my tomatoes. But here I've got a pepper in the front and an eggplant in the back. And you can see that eggplant's got a nice flower on it. There's another eggplant there with some green onions. I just cut these green onions to use in the house. I put a squash back there. I don't know if this is going to be big enough to grow a squash, but we had extra. And then a tomato here. One tomato plant in this one. And then I got this little guy. I got this sun sugar tomato, cherry tomato, so I need to get that planted. I just brought that home. And the rest of these are empty. I need to still plant them. We had these extra beefsteak tomatoes, but I think I'm just going to get rid of these because we're just trying to keep them alive. Nobody else wants them. We were trying to give them away. And I'm going to use these 4 boxes that I have here for some herbs. Gary's asked me for some more herbs, so we're going to try to save that. And one other little, we stuck 2 tomatoes in there. So let me take you over and we'll show you our backyard garden. All right, so we'll start on this side. We've got some onions, some basil. It's looking pretty good. These are my Roma tomatoes. Some of them are looking better than others. So a couple of these in the back look good here. And these 2 in the front, not so great. I don't know what's happening here. And then more basil. Cucumbers are looking pretty happy. Let me show you this side here where we've got our peppers. So there's some peppers over here that look like they're doing pretty well actually. And these little orange habaneros that I bought. So I had bought these in like a 6-pack. They're still really small, maybe stunted. So we'll see how those do. I think I've got like one volunteer bean back here trying to come up. So we'll see how he does amongst all these cucumbers. We'll see how that goes. And then I'll take you over here. So we added this trough, this water trough, and we put some soil in it. And Gary planted a couple of our beefsteak tomatoes. We just had an abundance of plants that we started and we didn't have room for. So we put that there. Over here we've got our sugar baby watermelons that are getting started. We need to kind of get them to grow up this trellis here. That's the intent. Then some peppers. So we've got some bell peppers, some jalapeno peppers over here, and then more peppers. Oh, I see a flower. So I see this little flower on our Buena Mulata pepper. So I'm pretty excited about that. I can't wait. This is my first year growing these. And then some more peppers here. This tomato in the back is doing really, really well. It's growing. It looks so healthy. A couple more beefsteaks in here. We haven't done anything to trim these. This one's a little bit smaller. Now here's a couple of my Poblano peppers that I planted. These two here. So hopefully those do well. And then a couple more beefsteak tomatoes that are starting to actually get pretty big. Here's my ground cherries. Now, you can see actually quite a bit of growth on these ground cherries from last week. So you can see here, they're getting pretty big. So that's good. Hopefully they'll do okay in this spot and don't get shaded out too much. These are Armenian cucumbers. They really are starting to grow quite a bit this week too. Quite a bit of growth. There is a little tomato right here. We'll see if that'll do okay. It's not grown a lot since I planted it there. So we'll see how this is all gonna do. But we'll start putting these Armenian cucumbers up so they'll grow up this trellis. So let me take you over here next and show you what's going on. Okay, so there's our Armenian cucumbers. So we're over here now in this garden bed. And let me show you what we've got going on here. So we do still have a lot more peppers over here, and those are doing pretty well. I guess we'll start over here. So the basil, it's already starting to flower. That's fine. It'll bring some pollinators over. We've got the peppers here, some little guys. Oh, if you guys watch every week, you see these little babies, these little seedlings. They just want to grow here so badly. So every week I think I come out and I take out some seedlings, some squash seedlings. This seems to be what we do every week. So I'm going to take these, I'll just toss them over to the animals. And we do have a couple more seedlings. We'll get rid of these suckers. There's going to come a point where I'm not going to keep up with the weeds, and we're probably getting pretty close to that. And this is our Delicata Squash. So our Delicata Squash is just getting really big. And it's just growing like crazy. So it's kind of getting up on that trellis, which is good. So it'll use that space over there on that side, not actually our garden bin space. So some more peppers here. And then what I've got here is butternut squash. So I did buy one of these plants from the store because we had a late freeze and lost a lot of ours. So the big one you see is the one I got from the store. And then there's some seeds I had put down there. So those little seedlings, if you can kind of see down there, they're maybe 4 or 6 inches tall. Those are from ones I started. So there'll be a couple plants here and we'll grow this up on this trellis here. And as you can see, it's already starting to get there on its own. So we'll just kind of weave this through. And we'll do the same thing with the Armenian cucumbers on this side. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed our garden tour and watching our garden grow. We encourage you to grow right along with us. If you're not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you're notified when we release a new video each week. See you guys later.